Welcome to Winchester in the Know. I'm your host, Sergeant Dan Perenick of the Winchester Police Department, and I'm your school resource officer and work closely to keep youth, adults, and seniors safe within our community each and every day. I'm also the police department's liaison to the Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community, and in partnership with WinCam, we will bring you a topic on each show that you should know about. Through sharing information with our community, we hope to prevent issues and problems that we are seeing and dealing with often. We also hope that our parents use this information to assist them while parenting their children at all ages and save them hardships others have experienced in the past. We know all are very busy, but please take some time to view this short program and let us know your thoughts. Today's topic is suicide and mental health issues, and we are joined by Ellen Dalton, founder and CEO of the NAN Project, and Massachusetts State Representative Michael Day, who is a member of the Mental Health Substance Use and Recovery Committee. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time for this very important issue. And with September coming up and being Suicide Awareness Month, I think it's really great to have this conversation for our community here in Winchester. Mike, being our state rep that represents our area and also being on this committee, could you talk to us a little bit about your role on the committee and what's going on at the state level to support us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And thanks, Stan, for hosting this and for all the work you're doing in our community here, as well as the Coalition and WinCam. And Ellen, for the work you do as well. I know we're going to get into that in a little bit more detail, but I've been bowled over with the work and the commitment from Ellen, as well as the Coalition here in town. Fantastic partners for what we're doing on the state level. Really is a model, the Coalition is a model for what we're trying to do on the state level to have partners on the local level executing, right? We can only do so much on the state side. It takes the local partnerships to really step forward. And Winchester truly is a model community to me of what we want to push out. But that said, on the state level, what we've done, I've had the privilege now of sitting twice on this committee, both by request. The speaker kind of looks at me sideways because not many request that committee. It's one of the toughest, I always say the toughest and most rewarding committees up there, because you hear stories that rip your heart out, and you kind of get enraged as to why we're not doing more when you hear individuals coming forward with their stories. And then rewarding at the end when you're able to pass some legislation that is going to have an impact, as I think we just did in the State House. About 2 years ago, we passed an act directed really towards opioids and almost limited towards opioids. And my background is as an attorney, doing a lot of intervention, commitment work, and care for individuals in distress. I had been kind of yelling into the wind that we need to tie this in with mental health. This is not an isolated problem. Opioids don't operate in a vacuum. Addiction doesn't operate in a vacuum. It's mental health. And until we start talking about these together, we're really not moving anything forward. And Massachusetts is one of the only states that has a committee that ties those two together. And we changed the name of the committee intentionally this year to Mental Health, Substance Use, and Recovery, instead of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, which is what it used to be. And so the bill we passed this year really take steps forward to make sure that our coverage of mental health and our resources available are increased and amplified, so that we're not just focusing on the scourge of substance abuse and substance use addiction issues. We're really trying to have a holistic approach here, so that now if you're seeking help in Massachusetts, whether you're on private care, whether you're on Mass Health, you're going to have access to that care. I also sat on the Financial Services Committee, which is the insurance committee. And took that intentionally as well, because what we had been seeing was a lot of parity issues. I'm going in to get my broken leg treated. I'm getting the best care in the world here in Massachusetts. I'm going in to get something broken in my head treated. I'm basically cast adrift here in Mass. And so a lot of that came down to coverage, and a lot of it came down to resources in the state. And so this bill that we pushed forward, and it was a bipartisan effort. We had stakeholders from all over, both parties. The governor was in with the legislature, working hand in glove on this one, to increase the number of resources, the number of beds, the number of step-down services when children and adults are in crisis. Once you get them through the crisis, then what? And so this bill is meant to shore up and really move us forward as a state in providing those step-down services as well. So it's something I'm very proud of. I did a lot of work on it. Certainly not done. This is, you know, I sometimes say it's throwing sand into the ocean, but it's a great step forward from where we were. So it took effect. The governor signed it without delay, and so it's up in effect now. And you'll start to see a lot of these resources flowing into the cities and towns now, into the coalitions, to amplify the work that you're doing.
Well, that's great to hear, Mike. We do partner greatly together at the state level, the local level, and having that financial aid and the support is terrific. The Winchester Hospital, we work closely with the Winchester Hospital, and the amount of patients that they're seeing with dual diagnosis and support, and also mental health issues with younger and younger and younger kids going in to get the support that they need. Ellen, talk to us about the NAN project. I know that it affects you and your family very much so, and we're so pleased that you're here with us. Can you tell us about the project?
Well, thank you for including me in this discussion, because it is near and dear to my heart. We started the NAN project, my son and I, about 3 years ago. And the NAN project is a tribute to my daughter Nan, who died by suicide in 2012. And if you knew Nan, you'd say, wow, this is a kid who's got it all figured out. She was apparently happy-go-lucky, a strong student, lots of friends, did well, went off to college and graduated with honors, went off to social work school, and a month before she was to graduate, she took her life. And as a parent, it's just, I don't have words to describe what that is. But I spent the next couple of years trying to understand how she slipped through the cracks and took her life, which I believe suicide is preventable at this point from what I've learned. And what I took away from her suicide was that we really don't have the language, and we're not comfortable talking about suicide. It's the second leading cause of death of young people, but we don't hear about that. We hear about kids who die in violent deaths or in automobile accidents, but rarely do we hear about the number of young people who are dying by suicide. And there are an increasing number. The numbers continue to go up. So my takeaway was we really need to get to young people at an early age, and we need to create the safe spaces. We need to create the understanding so that young people are able to ask for help, so that they're able to talk about the struggles that they have. The fact is that through the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, we know that 1 in 4 high school students will struggle with a mental health issue during their high school years. Less than 30% of those young people get treated. When the fact is that treatment does make a difference. And 80 to 90% of them who receive treatment see a remarkable difference in their mental health. So we need to get to students in the schools and make the schools a place where it can be talked about, where it's equated with physical illness. I mean, mental illness needs to, as you've said, it is something that needs to be treated in the same way that physical illness is. So we created a program. The NAN project is essentially working with young people who have lived experience and have found a path to recovery. And we work with them and train them, and they learn how to tell their story of recovery in a way that is very real and identifies what their struggles have been, but also how they found a path to recovery. And it's a very inspirational, it's a story of hope. And when we bring these young people into the schools, into the classrooms, and they talk with students and tell their stories, and you can see within the classroom, you can see young people, it's palpable that they are looking at young people who have had similar struggles, look very much like they are, but they are talking about it in a very safe and compassionate way. And what we understand is that many, many young people do not feel comfortable disclosing. And when they hear that they're not the only ones, and that there is a way to recovery, and that it is okay not to be okay, then it makes a huge difference. So that's what the NAN project is about. We work in high schools, we work in middle schools, and we have some really articulate and very inspiring young people who can get that conversation going, and then our goal is to keep it going within each of the school districts in which we're involved.
How can a family evaluate or be aware of situations? Again, your daughter Nan went through school, was successful, and all the rest of it. And I've seen a lot and I've read a lot about the anxiety, the stress, the anxiety, and depression that goes unnoticed or kept within somebody, that it's a silent. Can we talk a little bit about that?
We can talk about it in terms of how do we make it safe for young people. And again, for anybody. And my experience was that after my daughter died of suicide, and I talked about it with Lynn Jalker on WBUR, and within minutes of that segment airing, I had so many phone calls from people that I'd known for years and years that had never talked about their own struggles. But now, because it was safe, because they knew that I shared a common experience, it was okay. And they wanted to tell me what had gone on and commiserate. So I think that, I mean, it's very simple, but that's the key, is to be able to create the space, to be able to have the conversation and talk about it, and let people know that it's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something to be afraid of. We all will be touched by mental health challenges in our lifetime, whether it's our own, our families, our neighbors, our friends. And it's something that we need to be able to hit head on and talk about. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to make a difference. With my own situation, I'm in the field, I'm in the mental health, behavioral health field. I didn't have the ability to have those substantive conversations, to ask the question, are you feeling suicidal? Are you thinking of hurting yourself? And we have to be able to do that when we know someone is struggling, to be able to hone in on that and be able to bring out the conversation and create the environment that we can talk about it.
Just picking up too, and I've stolen this from you shamelessly, it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Talking to,
Yes.
not just children, veterans. The statistic is 22 veterans a day
Yes.
committing suicide. So this is the too long has been a hidden problem and crisis. And that's why I think the NAN project is so great. And I've heard some of the peers coming through to speak and tell their stories, and it is incredibly powerful and moving. And you are wide open to discussing things after you hear these stories, because you're in a safe space. But it's okay not to be okay is a mantra that I keep repeating when folks come up to talk. And with the work that I've done, some of them come in and chat with me. Some people come in and say, look, what do I do? I don't know where to turn. And the first thing I always say is, it's okay not to be okay. Now let's get where we can get going here.
Absolutely. And the work I do with a lot of young people and a lot of families, I tell them that they're not alone.
Yep.
And a lot of times people feel isolated, feel alone, and I can see them pull back in their own world. Now it could be quietly, or it could be living their life, but internally pulling back. But it's important, and I think that's a great way to say to them that, look, you're not alone. Resources. Let's talk about resources. We're going to give some resources at the end of the show, but let's talk about resources at the state level, what we've been working with, the NAN project, and also some of the things that we talked about before we went on the air.
There are resources, and I think that's one of the biggest struggles is where do you turn? But within school systems, I mean, there are adjustment counselors, there are guidance counselors, there are teachers who just want to help and can help direct a student or a family to a path where they can find the resources that they need. Within the state, there are all sorts of mental health services. It's a challenge, but I think that we try and go into a school and identify the resources before we open up the conversation. Who is it in the school that is a trusted adult? Who can help refer out if that's necessary? We also, there's a statewide emergency services team. If someone is really in crisis, there's a number that we can call, and hopefully we'll put it up on the screen, that if you call that number, they will, and punch in your zip code, they'll walk you through the steps. You can have a crisis evaluation within 24 hours. And that's really important. If someone is talking about suicide, it's not my job, it's not our job to evaluate. We need to take it very seriously. and get the resources. 911, if you can't leave someone who is suicidal alone. But there are many steps before that. And whether it's school-based, whether it's a peer-based, whether it's therapy through a clinic, there are a number of resources that are available.
We just had in, for one of the series, Amber Haynes, our clinical counselor at our high school, and Jason Levine, who's our new director of wellness and counseling within the district. And we talked about that. We talked about the resources, and also Amber's very committed to mental health first aid. Yes. And we've trained 121 community members and educators within our district. Our police department under Chief Peter McDonald has taken the initiative to train all our police officers, because we know how important it is to talk about it, to listen, and then to ask those questions, and then to be able to get the resources. And again, that people aren't alone. That's the most important thing, which is great.
Just following up on what you've both alluded to, the shift in our schools has been tremendous. I think, guidance counselors were the folks that were going to get you into college when I was there. Now you've got wellness, entire sections of the schools devoted to wellness, behavioral health, mental health. It's a great shift, and even, Dan, you being in the schools, and being seen as an ally as opposed to a police officer. Some kids will, oh, here they come. Now it's Dan's the presence, they know who you are, they trust you, and they go to you. We in the state listened to some of the local concerns as well, and set up a behavioral health training program with a dedicated fund for police, for local police. Chief McDonald was ahead of the curve on it, but other departments were telling us we don't have the funds necessary, and we need them. We heard from police departments left and right, we need help training ourselves in mental health interventions, de-escalations. But there are a number of resources around the state before, as Ellen said, before you get to crisis level. Certainly when you get to crisis, you should get into the hospital, get your child or your spouse or family member or friend examined. We've got Section 12, which enables somebody who's really in crisis to be held for observation and care. A number of different, as you're well familiar with, a number of different options for individuals who are in deep crisis. But before you get there, there are a number of resources. NAMI is a great group as well to reach out and just familiarize yourself with, reach out and talk to them. Because I think, again, speaking about this and bringing this out of the shadows is, I think, more than half of the battle when we're talking about mental health.
And NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness, is a great resource.
Yep.
And the NAM project, what we're doing at the state level, what we're doing at the local level, the Winchester Hospital, all our hospitals in the area, the schools. Mike, I know we're talking about a new bill that's been presented in reference to school safety and mental illness. I know they're talking about, hopefully it will be enacted in a law, but there's a lot of money going back to the schools for safety, but a big piece of it is for mental health.
For mental health, yeah.
So I'm pleased to see that in the direction the governor and the state's going on. So hopefully down the road we'll see some more, and the money would be to be able to hire more professionals to come and work with young people.
At the young level too, and it's so important to get in at the young level, at middle school. We're not talking college kids, we're talking get children comfortable about talking about their feelings and about their stresses and anxieties at the middle school level, and introduce it to them below that as well. But it's so important to get in there in the schools and talk, and have the parents talk honestly and openly about that issue as well.
And part of this whole series and presentations is to bring the community, bring parents, bring school people together, and take 15 or 20 minutes to view this, to learn something, to be able to talk about it, and be able to get to it earlier, so that again, we can do the right thing.
Yeah, nobody's going through anything for the first time.
No. Right. And we really appreciate having both of you with us. Let's talk young people that are aware that another young person's having a problem. And sometimes they're afraid to say something, or the stigma of being a person that might have suicidal thoughts or mental health issues, the stigma. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about stigma, and then I want to talk about advice for young people if they're presented themselves, and then also they have a friend that is having issues. What are some recommendations?
Stigma is huge, and we need to hit it head on. And again, that is by talking about it. It's about understanding It's about young people feeling safe when they have mental health struggles. With a young person who is struggling, either themselves or a peer, it's really, there's a very easy number of steps to follow. It's asking the question. It's saying, are you struggling? Are you okay? And 9 times out of 10, a young person who is having suicidal thoughts is going to feel relieved. And I think that just the stigma and the fear creates this sense that don't bring up don't say the word suicide because it might put the idea in their mind.
Sure.
That is not the case at all. If someone's thinking about suicide, they're thinking about it, and you're not planting an idea in their mind. So it's about saying, are you thinking of hurting yourself? And you may have to ask it a number of different ways. But then it's about really expressing the concern and being able to say, there are things that we can do. We can go and talk with this teacher or this counselor. Let's talk to my mother, whatever it is, and a trusted adult who will help them get to where they need to go. And then really staying with that person and not just saying, okay, we'll see you later. It's staying with them and connecting them with that resource that has been identified. And you know what? Sometimes a young person will say, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody.
Right.
And this is very blunt, but it's better to have a friend who's mad at you than a friend who's dead.
Yes.
And that's a very unfortunate truth that we need to.
And to that point, the betrayal piece, people realize it comes from a position of care and love at the end of the day. Right. You're betraying them out of care, out of concern for them. And so, to Ellen's point, what's your alternative? What's going to happen if you don't go forward, God forbid? I always open up my discussions when we do the panel discussions or community dialogues by saying, we've got mental illness in my family.
Right.
I've got alcoholism,
right.
I've got suicide, I've got depression, anxiety, you name it. It's the joy of a great, big, giant family. I've got everything under the sun in my family. And we talk about it openly and honestly, because if we don't, we lose our members of our family to it.
We have come a long way. We still have a long ways to go.
A long way to go.
And that's why coming together to do this program. We're very fortunate because at times in the middle of the night, we'll get a call at the police station, we'll get a text, or we'll get an email that will say, hey, we have a friend who's in trouble, what do we do? And I applaud those young people that pick the phone up.
Absolutely.
And call the station, because a mom and dad might not be around, and say, look, we just got a text or we just got something on Snapchat or whatever. Could you please check on that person? And we're really pleased with the young people that do that, and also the adults, the parents that will pick up the phone and call us, because it's so important. Like you said, I'd rather have them mad at you, make sure they get the help they need, and the caring piece is there in the long term. That'll help them in the long run. Well, I wish to thank our guests today, Ellen and Mike, for sharing this important information. If you are concerned about a family member or a friend, contact the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255, or for an immediate evaluation, call the Emergency Services Program at 1-877-382-1609. Please let others know in the community about this program and encourage them to view it on demand at wincam.org. If you would like more information about this program or any others within the series, please contact us at winchestercoalition@gmail.com. Lastly, we encourage you to download our Winchester Coalition app, 01890, which also contains our text tip line. On behalf of the Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community in Wincam, I thank you for taking the time to join us on Winchester in the Know. Please stay tuned for the airing of 13 Reasons to Fly, following the conclusion of this episode. This short film was produced in response to the popular Netflix series 13 Reasons Why. The film stresses reasons to choose life and hold on to hope.
Just like you, my life began as an innocent, playful child, taking baby steps toward my future. But along the way, things happened. My name is Isabel Cole, I'm 17 years old, and I have been diagnosed with a mental illness.
I spent 6 months in an intensive residential treatment program, Kohannet Academy, on the grounds of Taunton State Hospital.
During my hospitalization, the Netflix series 13 Reasons Why hit the screens. It's about a teenage girl who gives 13 reasons why she ends her life. As a person with a mental illness who has confronted my demons, including suicidal thoughts and attempts, I was outraged by the fictional account of pain and death. Mental illness, human suffering, and certainly suicide are not glamorous aspects of life. They cannot be packaged neatly in a dramatic 3-act structure with a soundtrack. Life is complicated and messy. What I took issue with in this fictional series was the combination of the glorification and stigma that surrounds mental illness and suicide in general. Why not focus on 13 reasons to live and hold on to hope as opposed to dying? Why not 13 reasons to fly? Like most great stories, mine started from rock bottom. The phrase, "you can only go up," captures this part of my journey. I was 15 years old, an excellent student, with a loving family. I didn't have a substance disorder. I was receiving treatment in Kohannet Academy, a locked psychiatric facility for teenagers with mental health problems. This is where I hit my rock bottom. I must add that this is my experience. When a new setback knocked me down, I felt like giving up. One particularly dark day, I started to hurt myself. But instead of carrying out the plan, I began thinking of a few things in life that had made me smile inside. Call it daydreaming. In order to have a future, you have to be able to at least dream about a future. Suddenly, I was jotting things down, making lists. This was the real beginning of 13 Reasons to Fly. This transformation in thought and spirit didn't happen overnight. I challenged residents and staff at my program to come up with 13 reasons they live, and they keep going. My goal is to get people through those hard times with positivity, but more importantly, shift the way we think about mental illness and suicide. After all, mental illness shouldn't be treated any different from physical illness. Both are real, even if only one can be seen on an MRI or CAT scan. I want to live in a world where I'm not ashamed of a chemical imbalance in my brain. I want to live in a world where my psychiatric disorder is prioritized the same as my mom's broken leg. I'm sharing my story with others so they may be inspired to tell theirs. Let's blaze a new trail. The 13 Reasons to Fly campaign began at Kohannet Academy, an intensive residential psychiatric treatment center. The other youth responded and soared. We received abundant support from parents and clinical staff. We brainstormed ways to uphold all these things in our daily lives. Since then, my peers at Kohannet have carried on the mission.
Kind of a re-kicking off, with everything that's been happening with Belle and kind of graduating from the program and getting some kids that were here when she was here to kind of take the lead on and carry on, her campaign. I think that's what today's all about.
My first day when I came to Kohannet Academy, that was actually when Belle had her first group of 13 Reasons to Fly. It was the kickoff. We had ice cream.
Our clinical and administrative teams were really struggling before the 13 Reasons to Fly campaign started about how we would respond clinically and administratively kind of within the program with kids who were reading, hearing about the 13 Reasons Why.
I think I was there when Belle first came up with the idea and like a light bulb.
Where when Belle brought it up during a community meeting, I thought it was a really great idea.
And then we're going to jump into what is 13 Reasons to Fly. I'll talk about the mission statement. Maybe you guys can say something about the mission statement. If you give me feedback, then it'd be easier for other people. So you kind of are like role models. Pow! Boom!
Whenever I feel like depressed or anxious, I always think about, what are my 13 reasons? You just look at a piece of paper, look at your phone, it just makes you happy.
There is so much more to me than my mental illness. I want to see the wonders of the world, the possibility to turn my pain into empowerment, to fight for those that need help finding their own voice. Maybe if you guys are comfortable with sharing a few of your reasons, that would be great, because then it would kind of promote other kids to share theirs.
I want to adopt a kitten. I don't know that about you. Start running the groups, and then once we leave, we could like have someone.
A new ambassador.
Yeah.
They're gonna, take on the responsibility, but also staff are gonna be here for support the entire time.
So I think as a clinician and as a mental health professional, it really starts the conversations with kids and with their families and with their schools about exactly what mental illness is and what it looks like.
And then closing, what we've learned, and then moving forward, this is gonna be like your key piece.
I think it's given people a language to be able to have conversations with kids. It's given us in the entire program, changed the culture around issues that are occurring with kids, and when kids are feeling low and having a hard time and in crisis, it gives people a very common language that can use in the moment of crisis or whatever it may be to kind of help kids kind of find their reasons why to stay focused.
Reasons to Fly has lightened up my world, and I hope to share that with others.
With much love and support, I've taken 13 Reasons to Fly program to schools, universities, clinics, and hospitals in Massachusetts. My dream is to spread this curriculum nationwide.
My goal is to spread this to other programs, schools, just anywhere that they want to start the conversation. Because what it really is mental illness is something that's not talked about. Which is why I'm developing a curriculum currently. We kind of focus on adjusting that curriculum. It's not going to be set in stone. If some kids want to talk about social media more, if some people want to talk about labels less, then we'll adjust it and kind of make it tailored to your program's needs.
I really don't like the whole 13 Reasons to Die thing. I'm stronger than the stuff that has happened to me in my past. I'm stronger than my self-harm. I'm stronger than what goes on in my mind. There's a lot of beauty in life.
She did a good job. She got a lot of things right. Our family is surrounded by love. Oh, artsy. I know, it's so artsy. I feel a lot better. When I first got to Worcester Recovery Center, I was in bad condition and not functioning as I used to. I see myself starting a chapter at my new therapeutic school when I get home.
I really appreciate what she's doing and how she's going about doing it. I love what she's doing with actual hands-on activity and allowing people to really express yourself, because talking just doesn't always cut it sometimes, and actually sitting there with a pen and having to write it down kind of brings it home.
How somebody can set up this whole thing single-handedly, it really is inspiring that you can, if someone can do that, why can't I do it? You know what I mean? And it makes you think, well, I can make a difference if I want to. I think it's peer-to-peer, because when somebody that's more, it's harder to believe that something can be helpful when it's an adult that's doing it. When it's someone at your own age, it's a different kind of experience. I'd love to help in any way I can, because it's helping others makes me feel good about myself. You never really know how it's going to be received by others, but we can just hope for the best that it will be received well. Well, probably spreading it around the rest of Massachusetts and possibly into other states in the future. Because it's, once you get the ball rolling, it's pretty hard to stop it.
Who better to keep the momentum building than some of the best role models our world has to offer? The young people brave enough to share their story.
The NAM Project is an initiative to increase mental health awareness and acceptance amongst young people. It was created in memory of Nan Kavanaugh, a young woman who took her own life after struggling with OCD, depression, and anxiety. The NAM Project has trained nearly 75 young adult peer mentors, like Belle and I, who have struggled with mental health challenges, but have found their own path to recovery. We share comeback stories of resiliency with students to help open up the conversation around mental health. This peer-to-peer model makes mental illness a safe topic to discuss. It educates the young people about the supports available in their community so they know where to turn if they or their peers are struggling. An adult moderator guides the conversation about struggles with mental illness and depression and how to access these supports, leaving the students with an understanding that it's okay not to be okay. Working with the NAN project has provided me with the opportunity to impact young people's lives for the better and leave others who may be struggling with the message that there is help and there is hope. And by the way, I have my own 13 reasons to fly. I would say my number one, topmost, is my family. They supported me and cared for me while I was struggling with my own mental health, and they continue to love and support me to this day. Also, feeling like I have a purpose. I do my best to try and give back to all who have helped me by working in the mental health field. And lastly, knowing that in the grand scheme of things, the mistakes I've made in the past aren't what defines me, and they aren't nearly as big as I might have seemed they were at the time.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm 16. These are my 13 reasons to fly. Number 4 is the beach. I love the beach. I mean, I'm Irish, so I don't tan. Number 7 is graduating high school and going to college. And I'm just so excited to see what goes on ahead. If I've had a bad day, I know it's gonna get better, and I know obviously I have great things ahead of me. Number 12 is my anxiety. I had anxiety since I was 12 years old, between 7th and 8th grade. I would start having really bad anxiety. I got to a point where I had 6 a week, and some would last 15 minutes, and then I'd have some that would last 2 hours. And they would just come, sometimes there'd be a reason, and sometimes there wouldn't be, and I would just have them out of the blue. And I was so afraid other people would judge me. I didn't know a lot about my own mental health. I worked with a therapist, I worked with my guidance counselors. I haven't had a panic attack in about 9 months now. If I can get through that, I can get through anything. There's treatment, and obviously people can benefit from it, and I'm just living to give back.
Everything about my mental illness says I should not be here today, but I am, and I am for 3 reasons. Reason number 1. First, I've had excellent treatment, great therapists, and effective psychopharmacology when needed. Reason number 2, the many close relationships with people who know me and know my illness. These relationships have given my life value and depth, and helped me travel through my life in the face of these symptoms. Reason number 3, I attend a very supportive school and have empathetic teachers, counselors, coaches, and classmates. I'm with people in my life who not only gratify my needs, but also accept them. I've found that occupying my mind with complex problems and, of course, enumerated lists has been a mighty protection against my mental illness. Even with the excellent treatment, wonderful family and friends, supportive school and work environment, I did not make my illness public until relatively recently. And that's because the stigma against mental illness is so prevailing that I didn't feel confident with people knowing about it. Our collective youth voice is strong. People under the age of 18 make up 18% of the United States population. On behalf of other young people, please listen up. There are not schizophrenics or depressives or bipolars or mental patients. There are people with schizophrenia, depression, psychiatric illnesses. And these people may be your child, your neighbor, your friend, your coworker. Oh, and here's my personal message to the entertainment industry and the press. Please continue to let us see characters in your movies, TV shows, and columns who suffer with mental illness. Portray them compassionately and depict them in all the fullness and depth of their experiences as people, not as a diagnostic category. What those of us who suffer with mental illness want is what everybody wants. In the words of Freud, to work and to love.
I chose the butterfly to be the logo for our message because nothing represents flight, hope, and strength more accurately.